One of the problems that emerges pretty frequently in the modern pop, TikTok, Instagram mental health era is that legitimate clinical categories get popularized and the concept creeps into this all encompassing thing where then you have kind of uninformed, foolish people self assessing or assessing other people. And some percentage of therapists I'd put in the category of fools, some percentage I'd put in the category of wise helpers. You kind of have to discern those one person at a time. But this category of codependence is one that I see talked about in a way that undermines, I think, some of the Bible's teachings on what a marriage is. And so, asking the question, to what extent should I be interconnected with or dependent on my spouse versus independent of and separate from my spouse? And so, when I first think about codependence, I've heard it talked about such a way where it's like, some lady doing a selfie on the internet that's like, my boyfriend was jealous when I went out with a bunch of other boys. Maybe he's codependent. Or there'd be, especially now with like the levels of perversion becoming more and more common, you read some article in the New York Times that says if your spouse isn't committed to polyamory, which is, having multiple sexual partners or multiple romantic partners, maybe they're codependent. They need that exclusive thing that maybe it's because of their childhood trauma that they want fidelity and monogamy. And so there is this kind of this concept creep that is skepticism about any type of healthy, exclusive emotional connection. And so I go to Ephesians chapter 5, and it says this: husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. No one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we're members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. The two shall become one flesh. Okay, so when I am loving and serving my wife, is that for her or for me? Well, the answer is yes. That my wife loves it when the counters are clean and the dishes are done. And if she's coming home late from something and I can scramble real quick and counters clean, dishes done, I am serving her because I know she likes it, but also that affects her joyousness in a way that makes me happy. And so am I doing the dishes for selfish reasons or for servant reasons? Well, it's not super clear because it says no one ever hated his own flesh, but you should love your own wife as your own body. I take care of my body. I take care of my wife. We're one flesh together. When I serve her well, she does well. And then I'm happy when she's happy. And there's this mutual reinforcing service that goes back and forth. Likewise, when my wife is mad at me, it makes me feel sad. That's not codependence. That's called being a person in a relationship where you love the other person. I don't want my wife to have negative emotions. She has negative emotions. They're my fault. I feel guilty and responsible. I would prefer those negative emotions to go away because nobody likes feeling pain because pain is pain. I'm not a masochist who enjoys pain. And so there's this, you feel anxious or uneasy. And so there are times where my wife's been mad at me and I find myself kind of compulsively cleaning around the house because I'm like trying to somehow, I know I can't solve it, but I can maybe solve something else and see. And so she's like, do you think I'm mad at you? I'm going, well, why? She's like, well, you're cleaning compulsively and spontaneously and you never do that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling conviction over the reason that caused you pain. And so there's this back and forth thing here. And so I do think like a codependent thing. So like when I look at like the clinical definition of codependence, lack satisfaction or purpose in life outside of the relationship. So if I say my wife is my all in all and I have no other friends and she's the only one for me, that is unhealthy. I don't know if I need the word codependent apply to that, but I'm obviously not in a healthy spot if the only person I have any type of meaningful connection with is my wife. That kind of all your eggs in one basket thing, not good. Another part of the definition is tendency to endure a partner's harmful behavior. All right, so my wife is hitting me and I can't tell her, please stop, because that'll make her sad or mad. So if I'm asking her to not harm me or asking her to not harm herself, because I have to maintain this kind of peace where there is no peace, this false peacekeeping rather than peacemaking thing, where there's this fear or inability to disappoint your spouse. That's lack of sense of self. That's not healthy. The idealization of a partner, someone who's like, my partner cannot sin, my partner has nothing wrong. So that's kind of the rose-colored glasses, or enabling a partner's poor choices or sinful behaviors. So all of those things I think are legitimate things. Okay, you could call it codependent. I'm not sure if we need that term, because I think terms like justification of sin or people pleasing or fear of man are like biblical language words that help with that. But I don't, so I'm not saying that every time somebody uses the word codependence, they're doing this kind of pop psychology wacko version of it, where people are trying to not catch feels and trying to hook up without being connected. And people start feeling like in hookup culture, oh, if I start catching feelings for the person I'm sleeping with, maybe I'm a codependent and have childhood trauma. No, like we're designed to be this one flesh union and connection. And so this interdependence rather than codependence, maybe if you want to use that clinical language, I think maybe part of it. But what I don't want to do is you hear these stories of, an 87-year-old man passes away and his wife passes away 5 hours later. Like, oh, I guess they're codependent. Like that. No, I feel like that's an example of a wonderful 50 plus year one flesh union where there was mutual regard and enjoyment, this Ephesians 5 vision. And so I'm nervous about people casting the beauty of the union and unity within marriage and the mutual effect that comes with being one flesh and labeling it as codependent. I think that's a Psy-Op trying to get people to not fully invest in their marriages where they've taken vows. And so love your wife, invest in her, love her like you love your body, and allow your one flesh union to be a real source of joy and a source of tension when you're in sin, and let it lead to your sanctification.